It's 4:30 in the morning here. I can't sleep. I'm awake. And, my rule is when real men can't sleep, real men do the news. And this is an interesting bit of news and a welcome bit of news. Let me check my sound first. And while I do this, if you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through Patreon. And if you don't necessarily want to do it through Patreon, through PayPal or PO Box or whatever. And it's always appreciated, the help for the channel. So thank you in advance. And even if you're just liking and sharing it, still, gold star. I came across a bit of news in this. The majority of Republicans are on board for Medicare for all. Majority of Republicans support Medicare for all poll funds. It's not a huge amount, but it's more than half. I'll take it. I couldn't sleep. A gentleman who was selling sunglasses approached my wife and I at the Lisbon, I think it's called Comencia or something like that, and offered us pot. And so this kind of not necessarily great, I went out and smoked a joint while I waited and thought about how I was going to make this argument. And so let me try to make this argument this way, because I've talked about this before, but I want to make a specific argument. We in our society, we are extremely accustomed to advancements in technology. So like the light that I'm using, somebody had to create the bulb, somebody had to create the technology in order to make the stand work, somebody had to make the technology for the computer, somebody made the technology for the video system, for the electricity itself, the conduits for those electricities, all of these little incremental technologies that people toiled on that we would never know their names, that have been added and created into technology that we use, we don't even think of. The lights in our room make us better. The elevators make us better. The cars make us better. The capacity to send things into space make us better. In fact, the things that we sent into space and just the very act of the technology in order to create rocket systems allowed us to make technologies also here on Earth. All of those things make us better. They allowed us to do more work, allowed us further advancements in regards to our knowledge of the universe, even our knowledge of just basic things that allowed us to do more things. Me doing this kind of art is only possible because of all sorts of unnamed people throughout time and throughout history that is given their work, their labor, their intellect. And those things were put into technological devices, and gadgets, and doodads. And this is the world that we have. We're extraordinarily comfortable with that. That comes across as just a natural thing. It feels natural that technology will propagate itself forward and that technology will get more newfangled and more awesome. But I think we really need to consider that there are all sorts of unnamed people that added their labor and their intellect and their thoughts and their skills into developing the world that we have around us. We are better for those things. Better for those things. Now, I say that because even though we're okay with those things from the standpoint of physical systems, and maybe it's because it's solid, it's something I can hold in my hand and manipulate and see and touch. When it gets to social systems, for whatever reason, we have a different perspective of things. Electricity makes us better. By the same token, from a social scenario, as we evolve to a certain point in our society where there are certain things that are possible. And in those things that are possible, we need to, from a social standpoint, also look at social systems as an evolutionary process. That there are things in social systems that we accrue around, that we create and manage as agreements that we make. Social systems that make us better. And in making those social systems, the people who come after us will stand on our shoulders of those social systems and look forward for things in order to push our society forward. Medicare, Social Security, got rid of poverty. I think like 30-40% of poverty. Amazing social system. We stand on the shoulders of Medicare and Social Security. Those things are our society coming together and making decisions to say that we are going to ensure that at the very least there is a basic level of subsistence for the elderly in our society, and we are not going to let them die on the streets. That is better. That makes us better human beings. That makes us better people. That is an evolutionary in our society. I want to make the argument that so is Medicare for all. Medicare for all is an evolution in our society. When Barack Obama, yes, Obama on this, gets a certain degree of credit, no, not necessarily pushing it forward to the degree that he should have pushed it forward, but breaking the public consciousness of, yes, you can, or yes, we can do this. Tepid, incrementalism. But that tepid incrementalism at the very least created a system where people thought to themselves, this is possible. Trump care, worse. But because of how bad Trump care is, to some degree, the public itself said, well, Obamacare is half-assed. Why don't we just go all the way? And you end up with a situation where even Republicans say, God, man, maybe capitalism doesn't necessarily need to affect each and every aspect of our society. This utopian idea that markets need to be everywhere. Understand the scenario that you have. This idea that if a person is in the desert needing water, that you charge that person 1,000% because that person is going to die without that water. I don't understand how medical systems are any different. You have a broken bone, pay me. Your mother has cancer, pay me. Your father has some kind of degenerative disease that he needs assistance, pay me. Medications, where people raising it some ridiculous amount. They're good capitalists because they know they have you over a barrel. And in having you over a barrel, they can rape you blind. Because what are you going to do? Not attach the finger, not fix the broken bone, not get the cancer treated, not get that particular treatment or that treatment for that kid, or what are you going to do? Not pay for your kid who's sick. It is an evolution of a society to create a social system that says, we don't want that. We don't want a situation, this exploitive relationship, expressly in this particular instance. We all, to some degree, have frailties. We are the 99%. We are not most wealthy. The majority of us, a $500 bill would essentially not be able to be paid, meaning if there's a $500 car note, we will not be able to pay that note. That's the majority of us. I'm making a point that as a collective, we as a society can come together and say, just like we did with Medicare, just like we did with Social Security, we can come together and say we as a collective are not going to allow markets to take advantage and exploit us. We can do this better. We can do this cheaper. We pay twice as much for healthcare as anywhere else in the world. We pay twice as much for healthcare as anywhere else in the world. We do not get better outcomes. Just to show you one chart, and yes, people are in situations where they don't get healthcare because they don't necessarily want to bill. We have thousands of people that die each year. Inadequacy of healthcare. One chart, because I don't want to belabor this point. Yes, the United States spends twice as much for worse results. Look at this. This is mortality rates. The United States spends twice as much, but look at this. We die like 10 years or more sooner than our European counterparts. Now, people can make arguments that maybe there are other things attributable to that. Fair enough. But the thing that deals with our mortality tends to be an issue of healthcare. And the idea that we're spending twice as much and dying sooner. This chart doesn't even get into infant mortality rates. The amount we pay for drugs. We are getting raped in this country. Certainly we can do better. We can cover all of us, and we can do it cheaper. That is an evolution of a society. That is a society that evolves and realizes that markets, even if you're a capitalist, don't necessarily need to infect each and every system. And it is a utopian idea to believe that it should. In this country, we were born and raised, and there's a cultural phenomena in which case where it makes it sometimes difficult to extract yourself from the way that we go about our affairs in regards to the way we think. But extract yourself for this moment and look at this as a person sitting on the moon and ask yourself, why are we paying twice as much for less results? And if we can cover everybody, because there's still millions of people that are not being covered for healthcare, people who are not being covered for healthcare. Can we cover them? Yes. You're going to get the Republican Party trying to make arguments as to why we should keep the monstrosity that we have currently. I suggest that the evolution of the society is to resist that, to extract yourself from the scenario to which we have, and to say that we can organize social systems, organize them in a way for the betterment of all of us. It is an evolution of a society to acknowledge that. Medicare for all is an evolutionary process of this country. The Republican Party is going to be against it. Elements of the Democratic Party is going to be against it. Fortunately, half of the Republican Party has come to Jesus. The Democratic Party was already there. If nothing else, we as a society should be on board for this change. In the same way that we have physical systems, electricity, roads, spaceships, buildings, elevators, social systems also evolve. Healthcare in the way that we've gone about it, compared to other nations, is horrendous. Ask the Brits with their national healthcare system. They would never give that national healthcare system up. Ask the French, ask the Canadians. None of them would ever give those systems up, because all of them in that society, or let's say the majority of them in that society, look at those things with pride. And they look at us with, what the fuck are they doing? It's time we join the rest of the world and evolve. Social systems. Yes. It may be intellectual, it may be intangible, but those are still systems nonetheless. We can cover each and every person in this country, and we can do it for less than what we're paying. We pay twice as much for worse results. It's time to grow up. I hope this argument worked. Let's see. Somebody, I heard a ding. F-Tree Fitty. Unfortunately, we're still blowing trillions on the F-35 joint strike fighter. Unfortunately, many in Congress support it. Not to rag on Bernie, but he voted for more funding for the F-35 because some of it was made in Vermont. It's a giant waste of money. That's fair. That's totally fair critique. Once you've seen one, I guess the Saudi Arabia now confirming using body to obfuscate Jamal Khashoggi's death. They hoped once you've seen one, you've seen Jamal. Oh, that's funny. I guess with Saudi Arabia now confirmed to be using body doubles to obfuscate Jamal Khashoggi's death, they hope that once you've seen one, you've seen Jamal. Are you serious? They're using body doubles? Well, at this point, they've owned up to the fact that they've killed him. I mean, Jesus Christ. How else can you spill coffee drunk from 3D print mug with the world's greatest budget waster and budget accomplish on your crotch at 60,000 feet? That's the best idea ever. Yeah, I hope this argument worked. And I hope this argument made sense. It's 4:49 in the morning here, so I'm going to end this here. I'm surprised that there are people here, and I got it in under 60 minutes, so thank you. I'll end it here. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. We can always support the Patreon. I got to be honest. To some degree, this should be a tip of the spear, especially if you have this many people that are backing Medicare for all. This is not something that should be done statewide, by the way. States are landlocked. Like, states use dollars. Their budgets have to balance. The federal government budget doesn't have to balance. In fact, we're $20 trillion in debt. We can bring that down. But I just trying to make this point. When they ask people in the various states, how are you going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for this? How are you going to make this work? How are you, are you going to raise taxes, or et cetera, et cetera? The problem here is that states use dollars. They can't print their own dollars. So when you get Gillum, and Gillum is trying to explain this from the standpoint of Florida, how he's going to pull this off in Florida, it makes more sense for this to be done from the standpoint of a federal government. The federal government has more latitude in the way that it goes about implementing a program like this. States have to balance their budgets. It's not that you can't do it in a state. Yes, you can do it in a state. How you do it, I don't know. It depends on the state. States are different. Colorado, they may be able to pay for it by, essentially taxing pot and using the revenue from marijuana to pay for all sorts of things. It depends on the state. But I would make the argument that this needs to be done at a federal level. Just saying. Just saying. Let's see. The feeling when you realize Jonas Salk distributed a vaccine for cancer cure for free now would mean that he'd be sued for the current big pharma market or laughed out of the field. That's so sad, right? That's so sad. And as for the F-35 Joint Fighter, that's not an easy thing to solve. And your critique on Bernie Sanders is right on this front. In various states, you have a military budget that's bloated. Now, in being bloated, that military budget is being spent somewhere. It's not one of those things where it's just kind of magically, just in the ether. It's not money being given to somebody that's purely within the government itself. No, that is being spent buying things, building things, boats, bullets, bombs. There are bases that are being made. And senators or congressmen sometimes have these companies that have budgets from the military that essentially live and breathe off of what the military gives them. It is difficult and it is hard for those congressmen to turn around and say, yes, I'm going to allow X number of jobs to be X because the military budget is being cut. How do you cut a military budget when the members of Congress have vested interest in that military budget remaining the way it is? Even one independent senator from Vermont. Even one independent senator from Vermont. The problem is capitalism. I'm sorry, the problem is capitalism. And I know people like to, oh no, the problem is, maximizing one's profit. And that seems to infect all of our affairs. What I'm asking is, do you really want people to maximize your profit off of your breaks, off of your cancers, off of your AIDS, off of your neck pain, your back pain, your knee pain? My mom needs a shot in her knee. Pay me. This person is cancer. Pay me. Your kid is sick. Pay me. And all of these situations being this exploitive relationship where profit is maximized in your weakest moments. The majority of us can't afford to pay a $500 bill. And we're talking about medical bills that weaken the individual. I was reading the thing from the New York Times that said it's not even just the medical bills. It's also the decrease in income by like 20% when an individual is in his 50s and gets ill. Because at that point, the person has diminished capacity depending upon the illness that the person takes on. Why are we allowing ourselves to be in this obtuse situation? We, as a collective, can do better. We, as a country, can come together and make a determination that we will do this. The people in media are a bunch of millionaires, and you have a bunch of millionaires who are like, oh my God, my taxes are going to go up. Jake, oh my God, my taxes are going to go up. Tapper. All of those people that you see in the media, to some degree, is like Hunger Games. They are somewhat removed from the processes that individual, ordinary people have to go through. Even the nonsense they talk about is completely removed from the realities that people have to go by. The anger that's presented towards them, even though I think is mismanaged to some degree because it's going towards the direction of Trump, is real, even if it's misdirected. The question shouldn't be how are you going to pay for Medicare for all. It should be how can you afford to keep the current system. Exactly. If you're paying twice as much, getting worse outcomes, you have still millions of people that aren't covered. Why do you want to keep a system like that? Why do you want to keep a system like that? All right. I know I said I was going to end this. Jamarl calls Sanders a what? A warmonger. I don't think I called Sanders a warmonger. I don't think that happened. John Crab 67. This movie, in my mind, ends in the middle of Russia, had anything to do with our elections. God, I hate it when people talk about Russia in the election. I know you have to talk about that. Russia had anything to do with our elections. This movie, in my mind, ends the whole Russia had anything to do with our elections. I'm pretty sure if you're eating your Wheaties, you probably can name 3 or 4 things that have more impact in our elections than any level of Facebook and Twitter ads. The idea that the Facebook and Twitter ads had more influence than what the $1 billion that Hillary Clinton spent on elections, all of the politicians telling you that you should vote for Hillary Clinton, all of the newspapers telling you should vote for Hillary Clinton, all of the media on the campaign ads that the woman bought and blanketed. The idea, not to mention her own Twitter trolls and her own Twitter army, and the fact that she spent millions of dollars hiring people to say bad things to other people on Twitter and social media. It's nonsense. Complete nonsense. It's absolutely insane. Baltazar, the only way Russia had anything to do with our elections was the loss and the cover-up. Was in the loss, cover-up, aftermath. Pirate X, oh shit, didn't get a notification again. Dude, intelligence organizations around the world are fucking with each other's systems. This is not paranoid or modus operandi, particularly for totalitarian states and systems. Look, you would never hear me say that one country won't try to necessarily influence other countries. That's a flat fact, but that's an absolute. That's across the board. If I pull a gun, you need to pull a gun because you need to keep a certain level of parity. The United States is... Do you honestly believe, are you fucking kidding me? Do you honestly believe that the United States doesn't have its own army online? Sock puppet accounts that the United States has, spending millions of dollars on this stuff. Israel, same thing. Sock puppet accounts, online. I guess what I'm saying is the idea that this boils down to Russia becomes a certain degree of nonsense. That's all. Like this, all of this focus on Russia, all of this focus on immigrants, all of this focus on things outside the country. The issues with this country are not outside this country. The issues with this country are internal to this country. Like this debate right here, Medicare for all. The Republican Party is going to come up with reasons and rationales to try to make arguments to try to convince people that they should keep the healthcare system the way it is. Keep the healthcare system the way it is. It's amazing. We need to evolve. We need to goddamn evolve. All right. I said I was going to end this prior. Some of the RU troll narrative people have come up with are dumb and absurd. They're blaming everything. Yeah, they are. Did you hear? Like, they were blaming environmentalism. They were blaming Black Lives Matter. They started going into this thing of blaming, like everything started to be blamed on Russian trolls. Like it became utter nonsense. They tried to say that Russia was influencing the German election. Germany came out and said that's not true. They said that it was influencing the French election. Found nothing of the such. Like, but it didn't stop them from saying it. And the moment that they said it, it was out in the water and chum. And the idea, we destroyed a country. Full stop. Like, this wasn't dicking around in their elections. This was actually using our military force to bash the fucking head of another country. You can buy a black slave in Libya now. If my wife and I jumped into areas around Libya, I'm pretty sure that we could pay somebody to go to Libya and buy a slave for us. Thanks, Obama. The irony of that. First black president creating a situation where you can actually buy other Africans. But Russia. It's utter nonsense. Utter and complete nonsense. Mad I would eventually devour herself into glaring in Russia flag for 22 minutes. Oh God, did you see The Onion? The Onion had an article. The Onion had an article that said Rachel Maddow stared at the camera and was so enraged with Russia that she couldn't say anything. She just glared at the... Oh, God, The Onion is not fucking around anymore, man. The Onion is not fucking around. Jimmy Carter had to give up his peanut farm. Did he? Did he? Jamarl Thomas, could you please do another video on UFO and Tom DeLonge? So, MacArthur, Louisiana, I actually want to. I'm trying to think of what the video would be. I've become far more pessimistic on, and even to some degree freaked out by this. It's hard to do politics and have this kind of euphoric expectation. Like, there's a guy who every so often I watch his videos who does UFO videos, and he is totally in this camp. Like, he's the guy that's standing on the roof of the tallest building with his shirt off, screaming "Space Brother." You know, he's in that camp. And it's like, why do you believe that the people who bought you all of these wars and the people who essentially fucked you over magnificently is somehow going to present the better angels of their nature in doing this? Meaning, in the capitalistic enterprise, you've had the 95% of the wealth being expropriated to the top 1%. The technologies that are created aren't necessarily going for the benefit of the population. They're going for its small 1%. When Uber gets to the point of automating cars, Uber is going to fire all of its workers. When the grocery stores get to the point where they don't need people in the checkout counters, they're going to fire those workers. It has nothing to do with the workers, everything to do with them maximizing their profit. When the guy who is part of the drug company, raises the rate of the drug like some ridiculous percentage. He's being a good capitalist. And you have these magnificent technologies that may be brought about from the UFO technologies that these guys are talking about. The letter that Harry Reid wrote, where he's talking about these exotic technologies, and you look at what the Pentagon was studying, it is mind-blowing stuff. Like they're looking at like warp drive and whatnot. And you ask yourself, what are they using that for? Do you believe they're going to use it for the betterment of our society? No, they're talking about this in a militaristic context. There's something flying in our skies. We need to protect our skies. There's something flying in our skies. And we need to make sure that the Russians and the Chinese and all of these other actors don't get it. The United States Air Force, going back for the last 50, 60 years, wanted to get technology where they could have near Earth orbit, meaning the ability to strike from space and to launch weapons down to any particular point on Earth. The technologies that these guys are talking about is well beyond that. This is terrifying. Imagine for the moment a weapons platform that they try to sell and say, look, there's something flying in our skies. We don't necessarily know what it is, so we need to dump even more money into the military budget. And in dumping even more money into the military budget, you now have this thing where people are freaked out because there's something in their skies. Not to mention, how do you know that what they're saying is what actually is? Like, I guess I'm saying, you're at a time period where reality, for the most part, is being molded. It's hard to know what's real versus what's not real. It's hard to know where you put your feet on the ground. Donald Trump lies as easily as breathing. The language that they use, the Department of Defense, is not the Department of Defense, it's the Department of War. It's the Department of War. The language, it's cut in ways to try to obfuscate what's actually taking place. And to this fucked up scenario, you add aliens. Or at the very least, the indication of aliens. It's fucking terrifying. It's fucking terrifying. Gardenome, the exponential rate of technological advancement plus unlimited budget mean we have no idea what they have right there. Because understand, a small technological jump from the standpoint of us may look like magic. Like, if you don't know what they have, meaning if they've been working on exotic materials, you have no idea what they have. Now, Luis Elizondo has come out, and it seems like they're trying to introduce this technology and pull this into the public limelight. I am not fully in the camp that believes that this is all us. Meaning, I actually do believe we're being visited. I think we've been visited for centuries. I think it's odd that people don't think there's something out there. With our limited technology, we decided to go to the moon. If there was some other consciousness and some other, planet, why wouldn't they do the same? Now, granted, we have no idea how they would perceive the world and everything else, but if there's intelligence and there is thought, they may have some of the similar inclinations as us and, may go about that. By the same token, if we're being honest, we have no idea what the United States military has. We have no idea. From a political situation, I would be very wary of what Tom DeLonge is putting out. And the spooks that are around him concern me greatly. I mean, if you listen to some of Tom DeLonge's initial interviews, he's talking about aliens starting nuclear wars. Like, this is some out there shit. Now, initially, they shut him up on this. So hasn't said any wild and out there shit like this. And I've asked some of the other ufologists, and I'm like, Have you heard this shit? I was like, this is where he's coming from. This is his context. He's talking about books like David Jacobs. David Jacobs had a book called, I think it's called Threat. I think the name of the book was like Threat. And David Jacobs makes the argument that they're harvesting babies. Aliens are making babies from humans for some kind of genetic experiment in order to repopulate the earth. Is it true? Who the fuck knows? But I think it's important to know that Tom DeLonge is coming from that angle of bad alien. He is eating any and everything that he is being told as if it is the word of God, and as if what they're telling him is just it, without any skepticism. The guy said this, so this is what it is. Look, my initial thing for this was to be the Space Brother thing. And God, I would love for it to be the Space Brother thing where I'm running out with no shirt on. I'm like, yes! And anything that lands in a craft, I'm hugging. I don't give a shit what it looks like. Come here! Welcome to Earth! Welcome to Earth! We're a fucked up society, but God damn it, we can be better. That's where I'm at. By the same token, I can't look at our political climate, and I have a hard time looking at our political situation and saying, yes, all of this other stuff goes to shit, but in this one specific case, this would be better. That's not where I'm at. That's not where I'm at. I think aliens are humans from future. I have no idea. We are probably created non-Homo sapien humans, hybrids, and contain cybernetics and genetic modifications. See, again, this is the problem with not knowing. It's, where do you put your feet on the ground? Like, where do you put your feet and say, okay, this is reality? This is also the problem with the disingenuousness of our political class, because ultimately it puts us in a situation where we don't know. We don't know. Luis Elizondo makes the argument that we understand how those craft work. And going back to the 1940s and everything else, there are times where they've been buzzing the White House, where Battle of LA, where we were shined the spotlight and all this other stuff. There's phenomena that we've encountered. So I don't necessarily doubt that the experiences aren't real. There have been people who've been experiencers who have been talking about this stuff for God knows how long. In fact is, if you were some other species, would you really deal with a maniac's government full of psychopaths, or will you deal with the society itself? You may deal with the public. And the people tend to come back with the same thing of, oh my God, we're killing our world. That tends to be the thing that the experiencers come back with. Oh my God, we're killing our world. What I will put to you is that there's a consciousness aspect to the experiencer phenomena. And that experiencer phenomena doesn't necessarily deal with things that are physical all the time. Sometimes those things that they deal with are non-physical. I don't necessarily think that it's going to be what we think it is. And it not necessarily being what we think it is, it's also one of those things that we have no idea how much our government knows. It's a black box. We don't know. Don't know. David Kapoor, Jamal, love your call for a new way, a common consciousness for universal joy. Look, I would make the argument, and maybe I guess I can cut these videos out, that you can make a case that love is a property of the universe. I'll go there. I'll be, provocative when I say that. Tom Campbell makes this argument that the point of our existence is love, is to become love. And in his my theory of everything that he comes up with, it's that the point of existence in and of itself is to become love. That ultimately, anything that needs to take place in the universe requires a certain degree of cooperation. Consciousness has that capacity to interact with other consciousness to build larger and larger systems. A cell interacts with other cells to build tissues, which interacts to build organs, which interacts to build a larger human consciousness system, which interacts to build Earth and all this other stuff. Us, as human beings, as we become better people, we develop the capacity to cooperate, where ego becomes less of a factor in the way we interact with our affairs. And in doing so, have this capacity to cooperate, and in that cooperation build larger, complex systems. Fact is, the only way you can build those larger systems is if you have this capacity to cooperate and to some degree become love. The same thing that energizes me is the same thing that energizes you, and the same thing that energizes a Trump supporter. Who I am is a quirk of my birth, in the same way that who you are is a quirk of your birth, powered by the same energizing factor of consciousness. We are the same. All of us. Even that person that you think is an asshole, even that guy screaming obscenities at that black woman, even the person who called on the ambulance, even the guy who's lynching up, even that cop that shot some African American, even that African American that beat shit out of somebody else. I'm not in this camp that believe we're robots, even though I use the argument of robots, because I think it's like describing relativistic speeds versus local effects of Newtonian mechanics. Like, Newtonian mechanics, for the most part, applies to most of the things that we see around us. And you could be, to some degree, forgiven if you thought that Newtonian mechanics applied to everything in the universe. But at relativistic speeds, it stops applying. And time and space starts to contort and everything else. I use this idea of us being robots because I think, for the most part, we grow and learn, and everything that's put in our head, for some degree, is coming from something around us. It is hard to make the determination where the environment stops and where we begin. That said, there is something there, that's animating force, that at the end of the day can pull the lever in one direction or the other against those forces that would run afoul against us just being robots. Yeah. Consciousness matters, at least I think it does. And I do agree with this thing of becoming love. And in love, in this case, I'm talking about cooperation. Pulling levers. I just mean, the thing, like, your natural incentive, like the incentives that drive human behavior. So Ryanair sucks. That said, Ryanair has a ticket for $80. The natural incentive is for me to take that ticket for $80 and go. But at the same token, Ryanair sucks. And there's something in me that says, God damn it, despite that natural incentive, I don't want to do that. Now you could say, well, dude, that's environmental factors and everything else. That may be true, but by the same token, the natural lowest common denominator would be to take the ticket and go on with your business and feel bad about yourself. There's an aspect of us that pulls against those natural incentives at times. At times. This is kind of why I say the robot thing I don't necessarily think fully applies, even though I use it as a point of view. Because oftentimes those incentives do drive us. I'm not in this camp of raw materialism, even though I think the overwhelming majority of our behavior, for the most part, is raw materialistic. I hope that makes sense. Adore Pariah, removing the human element from power exercising of the oppressed people, even when humans, we get stuff like WikiLeaks, journalists' killings. Terminator already happened. It was in 1984. Jamal, have you ever watched Blake 7? It's a British science fiction. I haven't. No. Blake 7. I've never watched that one. I've never heard of that one. Removing the human element from the power exercising and oppressed people, even when human stuff like WikiLeaks. So, look, it's not that I try to like whitewash the human behavior aspect of it. I try to look at it from the standpoint of it makes all the sense in the world for, look, people are only acting in the way that their society is telling them to act. I'm sorry, that it's this idea that human beings are individuals is nonsense. It doesn't take human nature into consideration. Human nature is not, no. Human nature is water in a bottle. There's certain things that you can embellish, meaning, yes, human beings can be jealous, human beings can be envious, human beings can be mean, human beings can also be love. Understand what I mean by that? Human beings can be compassionate. Human beings can be driven to be helpful. Human beings can put themselves on the line in order to protect somebody else. Human beings can be remarkable fucking things, given the opportunity to be remarkable fucking things. But those are qualities that are emergent. Those are not qualities that are just sitting there. If you needed to feed your kid or feed your family and you were in a war zone, regardless of what you personally believe and your morality, you're not going to let your kid go hungry. If you were a used car salesman and you knew that car was a jalopy and that thing was going to fall apart, but you had a kid to feed, you're going to sell that jalopy, you're going to feel shitty about yourself, but you're going to feed your kid. The environmental circumstances matter. It matters. Those things matter. Hey, you, hi. You can never escape the matrix. The matrix is infinite. We just have to play the game with our avatar, also known as our bodies. Yes. Ish. Yes, ish. I mean, look. I'm of the mind that consciousness matters. And I'm of the mind that you can interrogate your world beyond your world. Meaning things like out-of-body experiences, remote viewing. These things hearken that something else is there, and it gives you a point of view that goes beyond just the typical point of view. It's when you're shifting out of body, and I'm talking about like conscious out of body, like OBs. It's loud. Now, what's his name? Oh God, what is his name? Robert. Oh man, he has a place in Alexandria, Virginia. I can't think of his name. It'll come to me. He's like the father of OBEs, but he has lectures, and in his lectures he kind of makes this point of saying that there's a cacophony of noise surrounding Earth, and that cacophony of noise is all the thoughts and everything else of the individuals on the planet. From a perspective outside of that, you can observe that. Never observed that for the most part. I've had odd phenomena. I've had weird stuff or even self-directed stuff, going beyond lucid dreaming, where conscious OBs. And to some degree, he's right. Now the question becomes, what's real? And that's not the easiest thing. Even from the standpoint of what we experience on a daily basis, it's hard to know what's real. And what I mean by that is, like this virtual reality argument, because you can make a case that any experience is real. Meaning when those people are having those OBEs and they're talking about all of these wild experiences, that all of that stuff is real. If they were scared, hungry, tired, terrified, if they thought someone was going to eat them, if they learned something from the experience, then for all intents and purposes, that experience is not that much different than the experience in our physical matter reality. We have a bias towards physical matter reality as if it's the end-all, be-all, bee's knees. We even try to force people to stay in physical matter reality by outlawing certain drugs and everything else. Yes, you're stuck to some degree, at least from the time frame of birth to death. But you're thrust in a world where it's just kind of, I have no idea what the fuck this is. And you're forced to just live X amount of time. Pain makes it real. So it's not something where you can be completely detached from the experiences, because you will get hungry, your avatar would hurt, it can be injured, all sorts of stuff. Here's the key point. We assume that we're a body, and that with that body, there's an intellect associated with the body that's grafted to us. But that's an assumption. When you're in a dream state, when you're lucid, even when you're in an OBE, you have an avatar. You keep the avatar. Like, even in dream states, you can, walk around, you're talking to your girlfriend, you're looking up at the sky and all this other stuff. And you're doing all of this from the perspective of I, even though you're the totality of it all. At the point where you shift back into your waking state, nobody ever really thinks, well, wait a minute, if I was the totality of all of this, what does that mean for where I am now? Things can be real and unreal simultaneously. It's a matter of criteria and definition. Yes, Garden. And it becomes a little weird at times. I had another weird ass sleep paralysis thing recently, and in my house, darkness, unable to turn anything on, and the fan in my house was running. When I forced myself out, I heard creaking from the shelves beside the bed. Felt like someone was watching me there. Creepy as fuck feeling. It can be creepy. That can be creepy. By the same token, that's your jumping off point. If you can be aware that you're in sleep paralysis, that's your point of exiting the body. Like, sleep paralysis is the point that I aim for when I try to do lucid states or out-of-body states. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get to even that point for like a year or more. So, subconscious and altered consciousness is still consciousness, is all real. Yes, David Kapoor. Yes. Yes, agreed. Agreed. I didn't miss it. I didn't miss it, Baltazar. He said, rest in peace. I didn't miss it. Got off on a tangent. John Crab's 67 videos spinning bores how the United States influenced the 1996 Russian election. And the video John Crab 67 is referencing how the United States got Boris Yeltsin elected. Yes. Yes. God, I love my audience. I love that you know that. I love that you know that. Bill Clinton, there was a communist running against Boris Yeltsin. That communist that was running against Boris Yeltsin was considered a drunk, and it was expected that Boris Yeltsin was going to lose that election. Bill Clinton intervened, sending his essentially press people in order to intervene completely in that election. He was able to get Boris Yeltsin elected. Boris Yeltsin's vice president won Vladimir Putin. One of the Brits, I think, exclaimed one day, I got that guy elected, or I'm ashamed that I got that guy elected. For all intents and purposes, we completely intervened in their election in order to put that drunkard in office and in order to essentially take advantage. If you look at interviews, there's an interview by RT for Gorbachev. He is a bitter man. He is a bitter man. I swear to God he is. Because for all intents and purposes, he's been had. Gorbachev had this idea that if he was fair and earnest, that the United States will be also. He was wrong. The United States treated him like a failed enemy and essentially ran roughshod over him. Over the Soviet Union. It's amazing. Yeah. God, I love that you guys know that. If you were Yeltsin, you would drink too, maybe, but you had a responsibility of running the country and not necessarily letting your former adversary take advantage of that country. You must understand, hundreds of thousands of Russians died with the shock therapy that the United States gave, or you could say Boris Yeltsin gave the country as it decommunisted the country. That's not a word. I just made that word up. We fucked them over royally. We fucked them over royally. If Vladimir Putin was influencing the election, it wouldn't be to get Donald Trump elected. Or if it was to get Donald Trump elected, it would be purely to payback for getting Yeltsin elected. Essentially, I'm going to put a clown or help a clown get elected. I don't even think it went that far. But I'm just saying they would have cause. They would have cause. I'm not saying if it's real or not, Bernie. It's simply a thought experiment. I didn't see the thought experiment. You said that religion isn't real because you can't touch, feel, or see it. But the exact same thing can be said for gravity. And you believe in that? No, that's different. Come on, that's different. That's different. I can't see gravity, but I'm affected by it. And even if scientists don't necessarily get it right, meaning the model right, maybe it's not a curvature in space. Maybe it's an actual, not a repulsive force. Maybe it's a force that's pushing down as opposed to pushing. You know what I mean? Like, even if they get it wrong, it's still a force there in some way. Religion, it's just some shit people made up. That's what Hillary Clinton was accusing Putin of doing to the President of the United States. The problem is they don't have any evidence of that. I mean, Hillary Clinton just needed an excuse for losing. If you remember, when Al Gore lost that race, they turned around and blamed Ralph Nader. Al Gore couldn't even win his own state. And there were thousands of people in Florida that weren't able to vote of African American persuasion. You couldn't even get those weak, wishy-washy Democrats, one senator, to come out and say, wait a minute, we need to contest this vote. I don't want to hear shit from Democrats about, this person stole a race or the other person stole a race. Whatever. I think gravity is the delay in a photon. In fact, photons are constantly bouncing inside of an atom, giving it mass. Don't mistake the model for the real thing. Like what I mean is, we create models of the universe, and we create models of the way we think these things interact. And so we have math to describe that stuff. And we have conceptual things in our head. So back in our time, when we were growing up, atom was this kind of round ball, and there were photons and all this other stuff. And then that evolved when we realized those things are acting more weird than that. That most of it is just empty space, like 99.9% is empty space. And fields are the reason why we touch things. Now, it's very possible that the consciousness aspect translates this stuff into something else, meaning that the world that's out there is different than the world that we can see. We can only see to the degree of our visual systems or our systems. And in our particular case, we have, 5 senses that allows us to interact with the world. But we have no idea what's out there. We just know what we can see and touch. It's spooky when you think about it. There could be something sitting beside you right now and you would have no idea if it wasn't within your visual frame of reference. One of the weird experiences that I had, and for whatever reason my video seems to be getting bad. One of the weird experiences, come on. It seems like my the Wi-Fi here is saying uncle. Yeah, it's starting to say uncle. All right. I'll tell this and I'll end it. One of the weird experiences that I had, when I was younger, I used to be really new agey, like extremely new agey. If you asked me what the world looked like, I would tell you exactly what I thought the world looked like. As I got older, less so, less confident, less sure about that stuff. But I had enough weird experiences to not be in the camp of, the atheist camp or anything like that. And I used to say, if there's something in this room other than myself, flicker the light. Now, the reason I used to do that is because some of the people who I used to interact with used to be like ghost hunters. And they used to be in this camp of, there's all sorts of stuff around you, and you can interact with that stuff. Now, when my mom and I actually went to this thing. It was to see auras. Even today, if I focus, I can see lights around people. Like, it's not much. It's like a little, just off the skin. But this place was supposed to be a full-blown, this is a clinic to see auras. Now, all of these people there, all the people like, oh, I see this and I see that. I was like, I don't see a goddamn thing. I don't see anything. And so we leave, and I'm on the phone with my mom, and I tell her, I'm like, that would have been an awesome place to do it because you have this insulation for other people. Like, it makes it a little bit easier when other people are around you because you're less freaked out by the whole thing. And she's like, yeah, we hang up the phone, and the light flickers. Light has never done that before. The light flickers. And I say, if there's something here other than myself, flicker the light. And the light goes haywire. Like, for like a good minute and a half, the light just blink, 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 on and off, 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 on and off. Now, at this point, I'm staring at this, freaked out, but appreciative. Like, understand, like the hairs at this point are bing, like back here, neck, and everything else. But whatever this was, it heard me. A, it heard the conversation. B, it heard the request. And 3, it responded. Didn't have to, responded. And it responded in a way that I could understand. Now, understand, freaked me out. But being freaked out by that stuff is often just a human response to not knowing what the fuck it is. If you saw a dog for the first time, you would probably be freaked out. If you saw, some bear and you didn't know what a bear was, you'd be like, oh my God, look at that fucking bear. You'd be freaked out by that. It seems to be the human response to be freaked out by shit that it doesn't necessarily understand. I've met people who hunt for ghosts, who hunt houses and all this stuff. I've seen some bizarre shit. Yeah, I had a friend of mine, Scott, and I remember he told me one day, he said, I don't believe in that stuff. And then he says, but there was that one day. I love it when people say that. I don't believe in that stuff at all. But when they add the but, some shit is about to come out. He says, I went to a house one day with somebody. It's a person who's moving into a new house. And he says, as I'm walking into the house, I see a woman walk up the stairs and walk into a room. And he says, there wasn't supposed to be anybody in the house. He says, I walk up the stairs and there's nobody there. I say, you saw ghosts. I don't believe in ghosts. Then what did you see? I have no idea. You saw a ghost. Now, me calling it a ghost doesn't necessarily indicate that I know exactly what a ghost is. It's just an indication of what we call it. It's what we designate it. It's something that we don't necessarily know what the fuck it is. It's just a designation. But it even bothered him to go that far. That's always weird to me. It's always weird to me. Let's see. Krillin 8876. JT, I just came from the best conspiracy, Lindsey Graham, and I want to give you an exclusive. Send me a hangout links. I just came up with the best conspiracy. Response, Lindsey Graham, and I want to give you an exclusive. Send me a hangout. Just send me an email. Just send me an email. I got to be honest. I don't necessarily want an exclusive with Lindsey Graham. And people come up with all sorts of conspiracy theories about all sorts of things. It's not necessarily indicative of a show. I don't believe in ghosts. No buts. Fair enough, Trudy. Fair enough. Never seen a ghost, but I know people who have. Yeah, same here. I have to give Jamarl some praise for letting everyone speak and not having mods. Mods beget echo chambers. Look, every so often I get a troll, but usually the audience is pretty decent. I don't necessarily have an issue. Sounds like Little Rascals in a spooky hooky with Jamarl in the That's funny. That's funny. Ooh, Jamarl, you're not going to sleep here in the States tonight. Look, it's nothing to be scared of. Like I said, I've had some weird stuff when I was a kid. I've said this before. When I was a child, I used to have something walk into the room and sit in the bed, and wide awake, freaked out, head under the sheets, holding them tight, and it used to happen over and over and over and over again. At some point you get used to it. It stops. You get desensitized to it. You stop becoming overtly scared of it. You just become kind of curious about what it is, if that makes sense. At least for me, I become more curious about what it is. At some point, if your show gets big enough, it will be trolled 24/7. Maybe. Deal with it when it happens. Deal with it when it happens. There aren't many trolls here, just me, Bob, and Jay. Yeah, every so often. But it's fine. All right, I'm going to end this here. I said I was going to end this like 40 minutes ago. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through Patreon. Let me make sure I haven't missed anything. On Streamlabs. Come on. The Wi-Fi here starts slowing down. It seems like it slows down after a while. All right, I got everyone.